Well, in my situation, I always responded to episodes by staying focused on my son's physical health. I called 911 to request an ambulance each time. The paramedics in our case were very calming and caring, and because several of my son's subsequent episodes were related to the use of psychedelics, he would often lose consciousness, and I was legitimately worried about concussions when he collapsed.
As I have two children, I noticed similarities and different things with each of them that weren't right. Both experienced sleep disturbance, and both of them became hyperverbal, and for both of them, that was unusual. My older child had delusions. They thought they were in a video game, or at least interacting with video game characters, but in real life. They saw things in posters. They also experienced disorganized thinking, which really didn't make sense. And when I talk about hyperverbal, they would be talking to me, and it was more they were talking at me, a whole string of things that didn't seem related. And when I tried to respond, I wasn't allowed to do that. They would shut me down.
The decision to go to emergency was the right one for my son, but it was a horrible experience. It's difficult as a parent to watch your child deteriorate and know that there's nothing you can do. After we went through intake, we were in a secure waiting area, and there were other people in the area, and it was taking a long time to see someone, and my son was getting very agitated. And once he realized we were locked in, I believe he went to a side room and he started throwing furniture around, and they had to call security and they had to sedate him, and they asked us to leave, and they said they would call us when they could place him. When my husband and I left the hospital, we had to form him and declare him incompetent. And it was the lowest of lows, but absolutely the right decision.
Things then got to more of a crisis point 2 days later, and the hardest thing I've ever had to do was to call an ambulance. But it was the best thing I could have done, because the ambulance attendants were able to talk to my child and to convince them to get the help they needed. They were taken to our local hospital and admitted to the locked unit in the emergency room for their safety. My younger child was a bit different. I had been bringing them home for Christmas break, and on the drive home, it became obvious that they were suffering from an episode of some type. When we got home, my other child, who had been through it already, recognized what was going on. And we managed to convince them that they should seek some kind of help.
The 911 dispatchers were very skilled at helping him stay calm, helping me stay calm, getting the required information about what emergency personnel to send. I know not everybody's comfortable calling 911, but in our case, when I did it, it always resulted in de-escalation, medical attention, and an improvement in symptoms.
When my son was admitted in the hospital, I took a leave of absence from work. I had a great employer who gave me the time and space I needed. I went to the hospital every day. At first, it was very short because my son was very agitated, but then I could spend a longer time period with him. He was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, and he did go in with severe mania, with psychosis, and once the meds kicked in, he was able to calm down, and he had access to a psychiatrist there. He had access to nurses, and he had access to therapy sessions. And once he was calmed down, he knew what he needed to do to come home, and he really wanted to come home.
I would phone check in the evening with the nurses on staff, one night, the nurse reported that my son had an angry outburst, and he had to be chemically restrained, and I'd never heard that term before. So I did find out that it meant that he had to be restrained by security. He was put in a straitjacket, given an injection. That I'll never forget how sad I felt about that, and my son won't ever forget that experience either. We had a few visits after that that didn't end well because my son was delusional and I was frustrated with his fixations and ideas. It's okay to cut it short and regroup when you need to.
With my older child, visitation was very short. Since they were being verbally aggressive towards me, I actually did not stay for more than about 10 minutes. I felt a little guilty around that, but then I realized that we both needed to stay safe. With my younger child, it was very different. They were in an inpatient ward. The room was comfortable, and I was able to spend time with them. The only challenge was it was during the pandemic, and I did have to make an appointment every day to actually see them. In fact, they actually asked me not to come quite as often. They felt that their recovery might be better if they had time to think for themselves and work things through. So I did honor that. It was hard because I want to be with my child. However, being an adult, I realized, okay, I have to honor their decision.